Hello and welcome to Green Healing, where we discuss alternative and natural healing from abuse and CPTSD. Today I want to talk about psychological abuse as part of the Types of Abuse series. I'd like to put a quick little disclaimer that the information shared here is the knowledge gathered and also from personal experience, but it might be triggering for some, especially if you've experienced this type of abuse. Psychological abuse is when the abuser uses threats and causes fear in order to coerce and gain control. Abusers also use punishments to control their victims. Punishments, while some can be physical abuse or emotional or even verbal abuse, through repetition of consistent punishment, it becomes mixed with psychological abuse as part of it. The threat of being hit or of not receiving affection or being berated or yelled at, and even just knowing it might happen, can be enough to be put in a state of fear and be coerced. The abuser, after a time, doesn't even have to make any threats. The victim just knows it's there, that it's possible. Psychological abuse also includes, without being limited to, threatening to harm the person or their family if they leave the abuser. Threats of self-harm, of violence, of abandonment, of deprivation. Stalking, criminal harassment, destruction of personal property, verbal aggression tying into verbal abuse and emotional abuse as well. Socially isolating the victim. Narky, the person, quote unquote person who abused me, that's his nickname, he didn't want me to be on good terms with my family nor with my friends. So he turned me against them and caused rifts between my friends and my family and me. Narky wanted me to stop social activities also, so that I wouldn't be surrounded by other people in a social setting. So he wanted me to be only his, so that only he could control me without anyone trying to alert me to his control. Not allowing access to a phone, not allowing the victim to make decisions, inappropriately controlling the person's activities, treating their victim like a child or servant, being especially petty while doing so, since so often the abuser is acting themselves like a child. And as for the servant, giving orders and having unrealistic expectations in order to turn us or groom us into, for example, a sex slave, which was my situation. Withholding companionship or affection, a link to sexual and emotional abuse, forcing their victim to sign legal documents without legal advice, a link to financial abuse, forcing the victim to see a doctor, a link to medical abuse, deciding where their victim can or cannot live, forcing their victim to do things they don't want to do. If you notice the pattern, psychological abuse is the way abusers work their way to other forms of abuse, using psychological abuse to achieve many of the other forms of abuse. Of course, it's not always the case, but it is an often used form to also do that said other form of abuse. It's also combined with a lot of the other forms of abuse, lead to the effects that psychological abuse causes. Manipulation is also part of the psychological abuse. Brainwashing and mind control also fall into this category, but I will do a more in-depth episode of Green Healing specifically on brainwashing and mind control. A lot of what I experienced was coercion and manipulation through threats of punishment and emotional and verbal punishment to get me to do what he wanted me to do. And he used psychological abuse as a gateway to other forms of abuse, like sexual abuse. That's psychological abuse. I will continue the series of types of abuse with more alternative healing methods as well. Please like and share this video if you feel it can help someone else. Like it if it's helped you. And remember, empower yourself and be emotionally free.